What's your move? What's your move? Good day, everybody. Today is another day. My legs are cooked, absolutely cooked. Quads are feeling nice and fried. Mostly the hams. Hams are feeling pretty worked. So today we're hitting back. I'm a little tired from leg day, but I plan on mainly hitting a lot of cable work, some assisted pull-ups, maybe a little bit of front lever work, assisted front lever work, and kind of wrapping it up from there, y'all. Not a lot today, but just really wanted to get some stimulation to the lats, the rhomboids, traps, teres major, rear delts, and probably going to throw in a little bit of triceps as well, just to cover those bases as much as possible. So stick around, let's get into it. Alrighty, y'all, so here we are, getting some warm-ups here, getting some lateral twists, some oblique twists, just to open up the back, get the shoulders nice and, loose here with some pull-throughs, working some around the worlds there with the PVC pipe. I'm really just focusing on shoulder mobility, good shoulder mobility before we get into this back workout. Don't want to pull anything or tug anything weird. And then once again right here with the bands, getting some face pulls, and then we'll go into some pull downs just to get some blood, some awareness there in the back. Started off, lat pull downs, seated lat pull downs. As y'all can see, and I'm going to point this out very clearly, I'm still working on that imbalance. I'm still working on that right shoulder being elevated up there at the top. As I was filming this, I was going back and forth every time I got done with the set, and I was just kind of reviewing it in real time and just seeing, okay, where does it come up? It's getting better here as we go through it mid-set, but then as I fatigue, as I get a little less concentrated, then that right shoulder starts to kind of raise itself up a little bit. And when I'm doing it, I also feel this weird phenomena where it's like also in my abs aren't pulling the right way, and it just feels very strange. So here in the second set, I got the grip a little bit closer, so I'm now about shoulder width, if not inside shoulder width somewhat. This is helping to emphasize, I feel, a little bit more lats, but as you can see, the right shoulder's still somewhat elevated, but I'm feeling like I'm activating a lot more of the teres major, teres minor, that whole shoulder rotator cuff area as I'm pulling it down here. Now, the reason for the season in terms of this exercise specifically is I wanted to provide a bit of a warm up for some high quality muscle up work, y'all. I'm still working on that muscle up. I'm still working on that transition point to where it's no longer the pull-up, but we get into this range here where we're trying to transition into the pushing portion of the movement. Here we are, another set of the same thing. I got it inside shoulder width, pulling that bar all the way down to the hips. If this is something you can try at your gym, with your setup or whatever it is that y'all got that you're working with, man, I highly recommend it. You'll see me do more of a traditional lat pull down here on the very, very last set where the grip goes all the way wide and we're pulling the bar down to the chest. There's nothing wrong with that at all. I mean, that's kind of the traditional lat pull down. But for me personally, since I've got this goal of muscle up, I want my body to start getting used to pulling all the way down with that large range of motion all the way down to the hip. That way I can really have an easier time and a more efficient time transitioning into the pushing motion. Now here's what I'm talking about right here, y'all. More of a traditional muscle up, and you can see the difference in activation. This is a lot more traps, this is a lot more rear delts, a lot more rhomboids, little less lats, and obviously a little bit less range of motion. But I wanted to experiment with this one to see if my right shoulder did that weird elevating thing, and it doesn't seem to, not on this setting at least. I was pulling some pretty decent weight, nothing crazy, because like I said, I was just still kind of warming up to some bigger movements, and you're gonna see me transition from this traditional lat pull down into more of a concentrated portion of the pulling movement as it pertains to the muscle up here. Here we are right here, y'all. So the range of motion, I don't know what to call these. I've never really seen anybody do these specifically, but I feel that this portion of the movement as it relates to pull-ups is weak for me. So I'm trying to experiment with segmenting different ranges of motion and then putting some load on those different ranges of motion. So that's what you see me here doing at the moment. Here's another angle, and you'll see that right shoulder just slightly elevate a little bit. It's very apparent on the concentric at the very top of the movement, and then it kind of works itself out as I pull it down. But again, just trying to be very conscious and aware of what my body is doing during these pulling movements, because every time I get on the pull-up bar, it feels like I'm not pulling in the most efficient way possible. It feels like there's some sort of energy leak on this right shoulder, on this right side. It doesn't feel strong, and it feels like the left side is having to overcompensate for something that the right side should be doing a little bit better. So my theory and thought is by regressing and focusing on certain ranges of motion and getting stronger in those ranges of motion, I'll eventually be able to kind of put those pieces of the puzzle together all at once and have a nice, seamless, efficient movement, in this case for the muscle up. So the way that I've got this set up, y'all, close grip, very close grip, inside shoulder width. I'm on my knees here, and I'm just really working this portion, this range of motion right here. Nothing big, nothing crazy, but I really can feel this a lot right here in the back, just underneath the shoulder blades, just around the shoulder blades, into the shoulder area. It feels really good. I get a sick pump from this exercise here. And even though, despite the shortened range of motion, it's something that I like to incorporate. And if this is something that you haven't seen before or would like to try, hey, give it a shot, y'all. Variety is the spice of life, and maybe this is something that your back training has, been missing, or maybe this is something that you would like to incorporate into your playbook. A lot of these things that I do that are experimental, it's really based off of how I feel, and whether or not it'll help me progress toward my goals. So followed all of that workup, all of that cable workup with some assisted calisthenics here. You see me doing some front levers. I got my Versa grips on so that my forearms are not a limiting factor here. All the work is in my lats, all the work is in my abs, the glutes, and obviously the resistance band. Supersetted that with some assisted pull-ups, trying my best to go as slow as possible on the eccentric. Now I know that there's going to be some people who are going to get mad at me and say that, well, the band is doing all the work and this, that, and whatever. Yes, you're pretty right. You're very right when it comes to that, which is why I'm trying to consciously be as slow as possible, despite the burn, despite the pain that I'm feeling there in the back. And as I progressed in toward these sets, keeping in mind I got about not five sets, but I was doing about 5 reps of these movements here. So 5 reps of front lever and then 5 reps of assisted pull up. But every time I got into another set, I lowered the resistance. So you saw me before, I had a green band, now I got a purple band, a little bit less resistance here. So I'm having to work a little bit harder. The lats are having to work a little bit harder. Abs are having to work a little bit harder to stabilize the movement. Same thing here. Now that I've lowered the resistance, now I'm able to really feel and milk that eccentric as much as possible, and just worry about technique. It's going to get you places that you thought were impossible. And for the past year, I would say I've been working on nothing but technique. And what that means is sometimes lightening the load. It means checking the ego. It means, hey, I might not be the guy that I want to be just yet, so I gotta lower some things down and lower my expectations, come a little bit closer to reality, and get that quality training that is necessary in order to promote growth. So here we are on the last one here, last of the assisted front levers, and then last of the assisted pull-ups here. Again, I can't say this enough. You got to milk that eccentric. You got to slow that negative. You got to grind through that negative. It's so important and probably the most muscle growth promoting portion of any movement. Anything that you're doing, bench press, squat, deadlift, whatever you're doing for hypertrophy as it relates to hypertrophy, slow that negative, control that negative. Here we are now, no assistance from the bands. And I'm doing a bit of a regression in terms of front lever. So I've got my knees pulled into the chest. I cut the footage a little bit there because I took a bit of a break, and I'm alternating legs, one out from the other. It's really incredible the way that these feel because your abs come into play so much. Not just the lats, or the rear delts, or even the biceps, but the abs are having to stabilize that entire movement. And I feel that I'm getting some really, really unique awareness in the core the more that I'm doing these exercises. Moving into the pull-up section, obviously got a nice hollow body pull-up. I'm using my Versa grips, making sure that the grip is not, and that my forearms are not the limiting factor. But you'll see, not necessarily as good on this angle, but as I pull up, I flex the hips, I straighten out the legs into an L-sit, and then I control that L-sit all the way down. Once again, helping to activate the core, helping to make sure that everything is in balance, everything is doing, the right side and the left side are doing exactly what they need to be doing, and that they're doing the same thing, promoting symmetry, promoting balance. It's a lot harder than just controlling the eccentric, even in a hollow body position. For me, I just kind of wanted to turn the intensity up just a little bit on that one specifically. You'll see me get another set here of assisted front levers, and this time not necessarily kicking the legs out anymore. I was already pretty smoked by this point. So all I really wanted to do was get into that position, hold that position, that parallel position with the floor, and then come right on back, kind of stretch out with my arms straight. I'm stretching out the traps, shoulders, a little bit of the lats, but I really just wanted to kind of go back and forth between these two positions that you're seeing here. And even with the legs curled up into the chest, my abs were still on fire, getting really good activation and a very, in my opinion, unique stimulus to the core that you don't really get anywhere else. And that's why I find it so important to incorporate some of these calisthenic movements and gymnastics inspired strength skills, because I feel that if you're not doing these things, you're kind of limiting yourself in terms of how much progress you can make, or how fresh or how stimulative some of your programming can be. And not saying that this is the end all be all, that you should be doing gymnastics all the time. I believe that, hey, there might come a time, even in my journey, where I start to feel a little bit stale and a little bit stagnant with it. So maybe I'll go over to more traditional bodybuilding kinds of crunches, cable crunches, reverse crunches, side bends, things of that nature, maybe even some kettlebell conditioning where I'm holding one kettlebell up and doing marches. There's a whole variety and a ton of options to go off of in this journey that we're all on here, y'all. And so finally, as it pertains to the back workout, I wanted to get something specific for the muscle up. But I was, like I said, at this point, I was smoked. I was toast. So what I did was I hooked up my Smith machine to about mid-level, about hip level, and used a self-spotting method using my legs, obviously, to help me kind of get all the way up to the pull-up bar. And I'm trying my best to emulate and replicate the position of pulling all the way down to my hips and getting used to that and getting my body accustomed to that far and that much of a range of motion. So you can replicate this pretty easily on a Smith machine, on a squat rack, although you might get some flack for doing that if you get heat for doing curls in the squat rack, you might definitely get heat for doing assisted muscle ups in the squat rack. Okay, so maybe not. It depends on your gym, depends on if there's people watching, if there's a ton. Don't do this during peak hours, okay? It's people trying to get their squats, people trying to fight their demons. Don't do that, okay? Don't do that to them, okay? But you can pretty much easily replicate this using the Smith machine and the floor. It honestly might be safer, and I'll tell you why, because a few days after this, I got some work doing the same exercise, but I was using VersaGrips, and my VersaGrip slipped, and then both my hands slipped, and I was standing on the Smith machine just like you see me here. I almost broke my ass, y'all. It wouldn't have been fun. Would not have been fun. So a safer method, and I'll probably do that method the next time that I do this. This was just kind of off the brain, off the cuff, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do it like this because I wanted to use the pull-up bar. But essentially you could do the same thing, just use the floor, self spot, and be honest with yourself. Don't make sure that your legs are used for support and just that extra bit of help to make sure that you're in the right position. Make sure that they're not doing all the work and that it's not an assisted squat. You know, we're using this as a tool to get the back aware, get the back stimulated, and ultimately get the body accustomed to pulling and using the arms through a very, very large range of motion here, y'all. So really like this exercise. I'm definitely going to keep it in my playbook as it relates to calisthenics strength and capability. But you know, yeah, that's pretty much it. And then we'll see here in a minute after a few more reps of this. I think I got about 5 sets of 5. So keeping in mind of, you know, strength principles. How do you get stronger? Well, how do you get stronger in a deadlift? 5 sets of 5. How do you get stronger in a squat? 5 sets of 5. How do you get stronger in muscle ups? Well, maybe 5 sets of 5 might do it. You know, I that's my experience anyway. And so finally finishing out and rounding out all the back work here, I wanted to get a pretty decent burner set for the triceps. This entire workout we're doing pulling, so it's activating everything from the back and the rear delts, all that stuff, all the pulling muscles, right? And the biceps as well. So just to kind of cover some bases and just kind of touch them a little bit, I like to throw in some triceps in as well at the very, very end. And you'll find that, you know, your back is actually involved in, you know, holding your shoulders. So that's it, y'all. See you next time. As always, much appreciated for the view. Like, share, comment, subscribe, rumble, and until next time, catch you on the next one. Peace.